That kind of ties in really, really nicely to the last team we're going to talk about because depending on who you asked, maybe they did kind of rush the timeline a little bit. With Houston,
Yeah.
they cashed in their chips on two pretty big name free agents in Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks, and bringing in these guys for the backcourt obviously improve the team. It kind of begs the question: are they gonna stunt their growth of those top draft picks that are coming in here? And there's a Jalen Green dilemma. I've looked at Jalen Green's numbers here
Yeah.
a little bit before the podcast. 2 point percentage is down, 3 point percentage is down. The stat that really kind of hooked me though, Avi, was the assist to usage ratio. And that's a stat that Clean the Glass
Mm.
has on their website. It is awful. It basically takes how it accounts for the usage. So let's say you have a high usage player. What does their assist rate look like relative to their usage? So it kind of puts it in context. So for him, he's a pretty high usage player. I think he's in the upper 20s as far as the his usage rate this season. I'm just going to double check here real quick. Yeah,
Yeah.
27% usage. So he's a starter. He plays a lot of minutes. He plays 30 minutes a game, but his assist percentage is only 16.7%.
Mhm.
So assist to usage ratio is only zero point 0.6. That's the fifth percentile for guards in the NBA. He's near the bottom. So that tells you he hardly ever really makes a good effort to get teammates involved, make good passes, get assists. He's looking for his own shot. He's not efficient. He's actually gotten less efficient in year three than he was in year two. So
Yeah.
not sure what his long term status looks like. I'm not really that impressed. I will say this: he has his moments. I mean, you just look at
Yes.
the last game, steal and slam a poster. Uh, for some reason, I can't remember who he just dunked on. He just obliterated.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I can't remember either. I remember that windmill was nice. I
yeah,
forgot who it was against.
yeah. I don't know why I'm forgetting, but he has those plays where you're like, again, athletic specimen. He
Yeah.
has the plays where you're like, well, this is a play we would see from Donovan Mitchell or Devin Booker, like spectacular plays, but they're not. You don't see them enough from them, and I think his biggest problem is basketball IQ. You got to know when to find your teammates. You have Alperen Sengun as a teammate. You have Van Vliet as a teammate. So now there's no excuse for being so overly ball dominant or having such bad tunnel vision that you miss these players that are in the post or in the corner. So I will say that entertainment value wise, yeah, he definitely elevates the status of the Rockets. He's fun to watch. Not a lot of substance there. He's actually regressed in some areas. So I'm looking for that as well. And then Sengun just being an all-star level player, and I think you had him pretty high up there on your all-star rankings. When that
Yeah.
before we got to the game, so a lot of reasons to be excited about the Rockets. They're probably not going to make the playoffs, but regardless, they made a lot of strides, and I think the main concern here is just whether they've kind of like locked themselves in, just like you were talking about with the Spurs. But regardless of that, I think out of all the teams you talked about, they have the highest entertainment value because they have great talents, great entertainment products from the 1 to the 5, and even in their bench unit as well.
Yeah. I think I think the differentiating point I want to make here between what I was saying about the Spurs and the Rockets is with the Rockets in particular, if you notice, they had already given up those draft picks in poor trades of the past, but they didn't sacrifice anything. They sacrificed cap space, but they didn't sacrifice anything pick wise to
Yeah,
add
the
Van
picks are
Vliet
intact.
and
Yeah,
Dylan Brooks. And I
yeah.
think that was really important. And the other reason that was important was because if you remember the Rockets from last year with that different coaching staff and the year before that, I mean, I can't remember a modern when you know how fans are always saying like, oh, defense isn't the same it used to be. I'm convinced all those fans were only watching the Houston Rockets. I mean, those Rockets teams defensively were absolutely horrible.
Yep.
I've never watched a defense more and been like, oh, I don't think anyone knows where they're supposed to be. I
No.
don't even know where they're supposed to be when I'm watching them. They're so far out of place. I actually don't know if this is you not executing one type of coverage or you completely misreading the situation and being completely off on your coverage choices anyways and not communicating at all. Like it was so bad and hard to watch that it was sometimes even hard to decipher whose mistake it was. It
Mhm.
was it was terrible. So I think it was really important for them to add Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks because they need those key perimeter defenders. And adding Amen Thompson, Aaron Holiday, he's been great too, by the way, making a lot of his threes this year. Happy for him to finally find a spot. But that's why you needed those guys to be added to this team to kind of provide a defensive baseline and help players like Jabari Smith and Alperen Sengun find their voice and find their place defensively so that their interior defense wouldn't just be such a mess, which is what it's been in years past.
Right.
On the Jalen Green point, I don't want to pick on him just because I feel like it's not defensively. I'm more than willing to pick on him because defensively, I still feel like there are just times where he's just not giving the requisite effort. And when they sub in Amen, especially for Whitmore too, but Amen, when they sub in Amen Thompson, and you're watching him attack, play perimeter defense or Aaron Holiday, you really get a sense for what they're missing sometimes when Jalen Green is on the floor. I don't want to pick on him too much on offense just because I don't think he's doing this on purpose. I genuinely think he doesn't have the vision. Like, he doesn't have the vision necessarily to evaluate the field. And then on the basketball IQ front, I think he wants to score more and he has the athletic tools to be more efficient. But even with his own handles right now, I think there are times when he doesn't realize that he has his defender off balance. And so he'll sacrifice the driving lane and think, oh, I guess I didn't create an opening. And then he passes it back to whoever the main creator is, probably Fred VanVleet. But there's a thought, that's kind of the difference between him and Zach LaVine. If you look at a lot of the things leveled at Zach LaVine in the past, right? Or even right now, it's, hey, defensively, he doesn't give effort a lot of the times. And you're like, oh, Zach, can't you do better than that? And then as a passer, you're like, oh, I don't really want Zach LaVine being trusted to make decisions or make buckets for others. Like, that's just not his game. He doesn't see the court like that. But what makes LaVine different from Jalen Green is, one, LaVine is excellent as a shooter, and I don't feel that way at all about Jalen Green. I think his low set point is still hurting him, just like it was last year, and just like it kind of was in the G League as well. Like, he just has such a low set point. I think it kind of throws off his shot rhythm. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing was LaVine is really good at breaking down players off the bounce. Like, if you ask him to, he maximizes his athletic advantage. A couple years ago, I mean, you just couldn't stay in front of him. His burst was excellent to a point. I don't even think Jalen Green's burst is the way Zach LaVine's was in the past. And then when he would create, he could string some moves together and he would know when to attack. Like, he could sense the moment of, okay, here, a player's off balance. Let me go in. Let me charge in now. I can get a rim attempt off of this. And I don't feel that way about Jalen Green. I think that's part of the reason why, if you look at it, despite him being a starter, the Rockets are outscored by 2.4 points per 100 possessions with him on the court, and he has a minus 7.1 on-off. And that's on a team that's good, by the way. He has a minus 7.1 on-off on a really good team. Like, they have good starters at least.
Yeah. It's not surprising at all to me. And we got to start to wrap this up, Avi, but just to one last point to kind of bounce off of, it's the, talking about the inefficiency is like what I really kind of hung up on with your points there. I mean, it's okay that he's a scoring focused player. We have other guys like that are all-stars. It's just the difference with him, like you said. I mean, you can't be just decreasing your 2.3 point percentage. If you're going to be that if focused as a scorer, in that, I guess that you dominate the ball so much to where you almost never even get assists relative to your usage. I guess that's my main problem. If he was more efficient, that would be one thing. But I think that inefficiency coupled with the usage, that's what causes those on-off numbers that you were just talking about, to where like the offense just isn't there. It just isn't where it needs to be. And then that's why I think overall their offensive rating is lagging way behind their defensive rating. That's gotten so much better, especially with the additions of, the players and the coach. But if you have Jalen Green and he's doing what he does and kind of like hijacking the offense a little bit sometimes, it just limits the ceiling of this Rockets team. So hopefully next year and going forward, he can improve on that. I mean, the jury's still out. He's still a very young player. It's his year 3. But it's just something to kind of key in on as the Rockets kind of go down the stretch and finish their season.